From LinkedIn News, I'm Leah Smart, host of Everyday Better, an award-winning podcast dedicated to personal development. Join me every week for captivating stories and research to find more fulfillment in your work and personal life. Listen to Everyday Better on the LinkedIn Podcast Network, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Did you know that small and medium businesses make up 98% of the global economy, but most B2B marketers still treat them as a one-size-fits-all? LinkedIn's Meet the SMB report reveals why that's a missed opportunity and how you can reach these fast-moving decision makers effectively. Learn more at linkedin.com/meet-the-SMB.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to another exciting episode of Negotiate Anything. This show is produced by the American Negotiation Institute, and with over 5 million downloads and listeners in over 180 countries, listeners just like you have made this the #1 negotiation podcast in the world. Hi, my name is Kwame Christian, and I am the founder and CEO of the American Negotiation Institute. Here at ANI, we believe that the best things in life are on the other side of difficult conversations, and we are passionate about providing you with the best content that will help you to make your difficult conversations easier, both at work and at home. Lastly, I want to remind you that we offer consulting and conduct trainings, both virtually and in person, all around the world. Our focus is in 3 main areas. First, negotiation and conflict resolution. Second, leadership. And lastly, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Check the link in the description below to learn more about how we could work with you and your team. And now, without further ado, let's jump into the interview. Susan, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Yes, and we are glad to have you back, my friend. So how would you get us started by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Susan Borke, and I work under Borke Works, BORKEWORKS, so my last name. What I do is I help you ask for what you want and get what you need with more success and less stress. Of course, you know, Kwame, that's through negotiating effectively. And I do that. My joy is when I can bring it to a group of people, because the energy in the room, when that light bulb goes on over people's heads, is very special. And I've also done it as a coach on individual situations that people are facing. At the end of the day, I think people learn more about negotiating when they're actually applying the ideas that you and I and all the other people on your podcast talk about, is when people can actually apply them to their own situation.
Absolutely. This is great. And listeners, my friends are very, very humble. So I want to make sure that I give Susan a proper shout out. Susan is one of the best in the biz. And you're a professor at multiple universities. You have experience negotiating massive deals on your own in multiple large organizations. And so listeners, if you're looking for negotiation training or anything of that nature, check out Susan's work. It is really, really good. So I want to make sure we get you a proper promo here, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. So listeners, today we have a fun conversation, and I will be starting to talk about this a lot more. And it is considering what the future looks like with artificial intelligence as part of our lives. This is not going anywhere. And when you think about all of the incredibly mind-blowing things that artificial intelligence is doing today, I want you to remember this important point. This is the worst that artificial intelligence will ever be. It's just going to keep getting stronger. So we need to think about what our lives look like going forward. And so to kick things off, Susan, when you think about artificial intelligence and then you think about the future of human communication and human interaction, what are the first things that you consider when you think about what AI is going to do to the future of humanity?
One of them is sort of, there's always the opportunity and the concern. So I see there's a lot of opportunity. And I think what's really interesting is that in the negotiation space, as you know, AI has been sort of developing and growing for some time. But these were larger programs focused on big purchasing operations. So we've got corporations that have whole purchasing departments, and these were using AI to make their purchasing more effective, more automated, that kind of thing. And that was going on. That's always been going on in the background, probably for at least 3, I'd say more 5 years or so. That's been happening. I've read, there will be an article here, an article there, but not much. Then ChatGPT comes along and suddenly, it's become available to individuals. right? Everybody right now has access to that Chat GPT. So you can play with it and try things out with it. And I think that's brought it down to a more individual level, which is a great opportunity. People are really playing with it and doing some interesting things. I've seen, if you look on LinkedIn, people are posting. They're like, oh, I used it to rehearse for a negotiation. I used it to generate open-ended questions. I know one of the challenges when I'm teaching that I give people is I say, okay, there are these problematic statements or why questions, right? Why won't you agree? Why you're being so hard, or you're being unreasonable, right? All those things that we really want to say. And you can feed those in. You can play around with feeding those into Chat GPT, or, I'm sure there are other programs at this point, being whoever's got whatever they've got, but you can feed them in and with an instruction saying, I want to convert this to an open-ended what or how question. Okay. And so because that's what I make people do in class, right? I have a few of these and I'm like, okay, now convert those, but now you've got something that'll do it for you, right? It can be helpful when you don't have time to do it yourself. So that's a place where I see opportunity. What kind of opportunities are you seeing? And then we can get to the concerns.
Yeah, well, the opportunities, when we think about AI in general, I think it's going to be a question in every single industry, not if AI will be there, but how it'll show up. And that's going to be in every industry, every business. But I think just individual to individual, like you said, we're going to have opportunities day to day to utilize this. I remember just yesterday, for example, I was thinking about coordinating things with my mom because I was going to be out of town. Whitney and I were both going to be out of town. So mom's going to take care of the children. And we typically have a nanny who's there, but she's not going to be there all of the time there. So I said, okay, this is a lot to say. And so what I did was I just did voice to text and just dictated a ramble of what was happening, what my concerns were, and what questions we still need to answer to make sure that we coordinate this. And I put it in Chat GPT and said, clean this up, make it sound organized and very nice and friendly and respectful. And it produced something instantly. And so think about some of these messages that we kind of sit on for hours. Like we think about how we're going to say it, and then we draft it, we send it to other people and things like that. Now you can just put in your unfiltered thoughts and then tell it your goal. And then it produces something that is incredible and flawless. And so I think that there are just so many opportunities. It's going to be really fascinating to see how just every day, every week, every month, we start to find new ways that it applies. And when you think about the growth of AI, the exponential growth is like nothing we've seen before. Because when you think about when cell phones initially came out, it would take years between iterations of the cell phone. Okay, iPhone 1, iPhone 2, right? Took years. Now, with artificial intelligence, we're seeing these types of leaps happening in days and weeks instead of years. So the landscape that we have for AI today is going to be very different from what it looks like in a few months. So it's been really fascinating just watching the development over time.
So that's the good side, right? That's the exciting side. That's the opportunity. I think the concern, though, goes hand in hand with that. One of them is there's sort of, I think, two things. One is that if we're using it and the growth is exponential, what AI draws on is original human content. And when that human content, right now, there's lots of original human content. That's sort of everything that's out there. When we rely more and more heavily on AI to generate our texts, our emails, which is part of what it's scraping and drawing on, as well as our work, our books, articles, our writing, those things. If there's less original human content, and an increasing amount of AI-generated content, I worry about how self-referential it becomes. That's one concern. The other concern goes to something else you were just saying, which is that in looking to have that communication with your mother, or let's start with that one because it's a good example. What we used to do in these situations, before text, before emails, before all that, was we picked up the phone, right? And we called our mothers and we said, right? We had these conversations and they were a dialogue so we could figure out where we didn't have to worry as much about how clearly we communicated because we had there was a back and forth. So we could figure out if we were communicating clearly or not. Are we going to do that less, as well as have higher expectations for when we actually talk to each other? Mm-hmm. That it should all be so polished, so perfect, right? When it isn't. We're messy. We're messy when we talk to each other. I shudder to think what it would be like for me to listen to what I'm saying right now all the ums, all the pauses, the coughs, the thinking out loud, the hesitations, all of that, which your listeners, right, are hearing and they hear me, they're connecting the dots because that's what we also do. But I worry that, we create this unreasonable standard for our oral communication if we get out of practice with it. And I think the place where I see it is the young people. So let's say the Gen Z people I know, and there are some of them, not all of them, but the ones who actually are not able to tell time using an analog device, right? They don't know what the hands mean because they never had to. And that was the whole thing about calculators in the schools. So we've survived, right? Certainly civilization hasn't fallen because people, at least the kids are still learning multiplication, addition, subtraction, basic algebra. And so you should be able to figure out the tip you're going to give in your head. One hopes. Or do we need to, I guess is the other question. Is that an important skill?
Does your company invest in professional development training? If you believe that your team would benefit from a negotiation workshop, all you need to do is go to our website, fill out the workshop request form, and then we'll set up a time to chat. These workshops are completely customizable, and we've done them all around the country. Negotiation and conflict resolution skills are beneficial across all professions, but they're especially useful in procurement, purchasing, sales, sourcing, and contract management. Our calendar is filling up quickly, and we even have some workshops scheduled for next year. If you think you might want one, I'd suggest reaching out soon so you don't miss out. Check out the link in the description to learn more, and we will be right back after this.
Hey you, I'm Andrew Seaman. Do you want a new job? Or do you want to move forward in your career? Well, you should listen to my weekly show called Get Hired with Andrew Seaman. We talk about it all, and it's waiting for you, yes you, wherever you get your podcasts.
Small and medium businesses don't have time to waste, and neither do marketers trying to reach them. On LinkedIn, more SMB decision makers are actively looking for new solutions to help them grow, whether it's software or financial services. Our Meet the SMB report breaks down how these businesses buy and what really influences their choices. Learn more at linkedin.com/meet-the-SMB. That's linkedin.com/meet-the-SMB.
Yeah, I think we're going to find out. And I think it's one of those things where we assumed that all of these core skills you're going to need it forever, but we never thought about life where we didn't need it. I remember even hearing just in my lifetime, when I was younger, I heard people refer to their sense of direction. Oh, I have a good sense of direction. Oh, I have a bad sense of direction. It's been years since I've heard anybody say that because everybody has a cell phone and it doesn't matter. The cell phone will tell you where to go. It can become a crutch. And the thing is, when it comes to communication, we could use that as a crutch. We could use AI as a crutch, but then when it comes time to have those unavoidable human interactions, then we see how the communication skills really are. And I think a lot of times we might enter a world where we get a false sense of security as it relates to our skill set of negotiation, conflict resolution, or just effective communication in general. So you can write really well, your emails are pristine and all of these things. And then when something comes up that is unexpected and you have to get on a video call or pick up the phone or meet somebody in person, how good are your skills? And when you think about it, and I'd be interested to hear your perspective on this, but I'm assuming that the skills that we've had just as a society, as it relates to communication, conflict resolution, negotiation, have been diminishing year over year a little bit, when generationally, because the older you are, the more in-person conversations you have to have, the younger you are, the fewer you have to have. Going forward, it's going to be really interesting to see how people can adjust to that reality when it's really time to have those tough conversations.
And we saw, COVID was a horror, right? COVID, I think we see what happened with the pandemic, with the shutdown, what it did to the mental health of particularly young people and adults as well. I'm not, discounting. There were a lot of people who, older people who didn't have the interaction anymore, people in like assisted living or nursing homes, right? That they were terribly negatively affected. Children and young people were affected. The best of circumstances where there were enough people in the household, or there were a couple household pods together, so there was more interaction. But for a lot of young, adolescents and teenagers, especially, they felt terribly isolated, and it's been hard for them to reconnect. And even before that, there's I don't know if you had her on, but the professor at Yale who created the happiness course. I don't have her name off the top of my head. And then it went out on Sarah or one of those, and it's like one of the most popular courses ever. And at Yale, I think it is the most popular course in the history of Yale University. And she was saying the part of what got her involved in doing something about that was this was well before COVID. She went in, she was a housemaster at Yale, and she remembered her college years, when the dining hall was where everybody socialized. There was a buzz, there was activity, people were, talking and moving. And she went into the dining hall in the house where she was the housemaster, and it was quiet, and people are with headphones and they're on their computers, and it wasn't like they were playing video games or something. They were working, they were doing schoolwork, but they weren't interacting with each other over it, So I do worry about us. It becomes a vicious cycle, not a virtue, where we spend less time in each other's company. We feel less comfort in each other's company. So we avoid each other's company, and that just makes it worse.
Agreed. And what's interesting is that when you think about how technology develops, it makes it easier for us to live more isolated lifestyles. And
in some ways, yes.
Yeah. And when you think about the direction of artificial intelligence, one of the things that they want to be able to do is pass the Turing test, where going back and forth, you can convince the person that you are, that the computer can convince us that it is a human. And I think with ChatGPT, we're pretty much there. It's close. I think as the conversation continues, you'd start to realize, okay, that wasn't human, but it would take a lot longer than it was in the past. For example, there's a program called Replica that's really popular. And so it's Replica spelt with a K.
Okay.
And so the story is the founder. I should have her on the podcast. Yeah. So the founder, I think it might have been one of her best friends passed away. And so she had the text message conversations. And so she built an AI that would respond like him so they could keep on talking. And so she built a program that is a chatbot, but it's grown. You can actually hear the voice now and things like that, where it's a companion. So you could either make it a friend, like a romantic partner, a spouse, or just a mentor, all of these things. And it can go back and forth with you. And I think as the AI develops, we'll have more of these types of programs where you can have an AI companion. And it's like, well, my friends are making me mad, my spouse is making me mad, but I'll just talk to my replica or something like that. And then we have less need to interact with other people because we have this program that's going to be endlessly empathetic, endlessly interested in you, and doesn't even have emotional needs of its own. And you just talk to it forever.
And what it doesn't do, that's the beauty of therapy, right? For 50 minutes, that person is focused on me. A good therapist is not merely focused on me. A good therapist is looking for ways to help me gain insight, help me identify, push me so that I can see where I might want to change and be motivated to change my behavior, help me develop tools or ways of doing that, so that I'm moving forward in my relationships and in my life. Whereas, what you're talking about is the friend who doesn't, it's like the dog friend versus, versus the friend who's the person who tells you you're being an idiot when you're being an idiot, as uncomfortable as that might be. And maybe, at some point, Replica or some AI will get to that point. And it's still the problem that you've identified, which is it's not a person. And it's becoming that intermediary. It's a layer between us and life.
Exactly. And you're right. We all need that person to call us out when we need to improve. And think about that. Think about in the future, that could be a setting. Do you want me to make you better? Yes. Coach me now. Or no, let's turn that off. I don't care. Just listen to me and validate me endlessly. And I think that'll create a scenario where we are less tolerant of humanity. Because, wow, I'm having this conversation and how dare this person want to talk about themselves? Ugh, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, it may be, when you talk about how important curiosity is, does it end? Is it something that starts diminishing our curiosity?
Yeah, I think for sure it'll diminish our curiosity about other people.
Yeah.
Because we have with AI, I mean, if especially if it's connected to the internet, you have a friend that's validating you endlessly that has all of the world's information at its fingertips. So you could almost treat it like Google, Siri, and a friend that only cares about you. But then when it comes to the curiosity directed at other people, like, Susan, how are you today? To like the whole half-hour conversation we had before starting the podcast, like that skill set, I think it's going to be gone. Not gone, but greatly diminished just because of lack of practice.
On the other hand, and here, so here's the other, right? Everything's a tool. And it's how I cannot think of the name. I can sort of see the picture in my mind. But my sister, when I saw her a couple of weeks ago, showed me this brochure because it was such an interesting thing. And it's a kind of robot, not like moving around, but a robot companion for children that helps them develop empathy, like exercises their empathy and engages them in ways that both help them find ways of expressing their emotions more constructively and articulating them, talking about them. So it helps children do that and then helps them problem solve ways to maybe do things. It has a lot about behavior and a parent, allegedly, who knows, the children who interact with it it does help with the social emotional skills for kids. So it can be a gym, right? It can be a teacher, it can be helpful and help you engage that way. It's not a substitute, but whereas the school of hard knocks that we get from our playground and our siblings can be useful, but they can also be a little rough on the psyche. So this was a way of helping kids, learn some of these skills in a more constructive and coached way.
I love that. And again, that shows the benefit. Like you said, it's a tool. And so we have to be mindful of the way that we're using these tools. And so I want to make it clear to the audience, like I am pro AI. I think it's cool. I'm just endlessly curious. I'm fascinated by it. I'm consuming a lot of news on this, just learning as much as I can. And so there are going to be these tools that exist that can help you to improve your communication skills and everything. We have to still maintain that personal drive to improve those skills. That's what I'm most concerned about. Like, will people just say, you know what? I've really not liked these difficult conversations. Now I have a tool to help me avoid it even more. That's what I'm afraid of. And this is a bit of foreshadowing. I don't know how long this is going to take, but our team, we're working on something in the AI space, but those type of things, developing it takes time. So hopefully we get that out soon. But I just think that there's so many opportunities. We have to figure out how to make it work for us.
Yeah, I think, it was a cartoon, a cartoon strip or something about, the next job's going to be being a prompter, like being the person who writes the prompts for AI to get the information you need, kind of the way researchers used to be, right? If you really needed something, you'd go to a librarian who really understood how to dig through the data, right? How to dig through the hard catalog to find what you were looking for, or the published articles index. Remember those? Or are you too young? It used to be a big printed book that you had to figure out where your articles had been. Anyway, it was a long time ago.
But I remember being in the library and looking things up and having to do those types of research projects and whatnot. But again, like to your point, Susan, there's so many conversations I have with Kai that I almost regret even beginning. Where I refer to something and he's like, "What? I have no concept of what that is." Like I remember one time explaining to him that the video game he's trying to play isn't working because the internet's out, and he's like, "What do you mean it's out?" Like for him, it's just this ubiquitous energy that's always there. He had no concept that it could not be present. And I was like, back in my day, the internet didn't really exist. And then when it did, it took a long time. It was very loud connecting to the phones. He's like, why phones? What? I just stopped the conversation. But to your point, you're right. I think like that new role of prompt engineer, it's very legitimate, because learning how to use artificial intelligence, even if it's like a platform like ChatGPT, that in itself is a skill. The better you get at coaxing it and prompting it and asking questions and giving commands and whatnot, the better the outputs you get.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different kind of programming, which isn't, and coding seems like, I don't know. There's talk about, these being able to build apps without having to know how to code. There's somebody's creating some software that allows you to do that. You still have to be able to think it through, though. You still have to, even if you don't need to write the particular code, you still need to work through the logic, which Kai's going to be very good at because he's a chess player.
Yes. Yes. I appreciate that. Yes. You're so right. And coding is a great example. Coding is a really good example too, because Susan, I remember a couple of weeks ago, I was playing around because I saw that it writes code too. I don't know how to write code, but I'm like, all right, let's try it out. And in literally less than 5 minutes, it was about 3 minutes, I had it code a simple app, and I put it into an HTML like tester, and it worked. It worked. So people can create really high level codes just using their imagination by telling ChatGPT what you want it to do, and it'll build the code out for you. And I think it's another great example of one of those things that was a core skill for human advancement. And now it's just, we've raised the baseline so much. Like now it's like, okay, well, we can now actually see a future where knowing how to code line by line isn't as valuable. It's almost like, hey, I understand English really well and other Romance language because I understand Latin. Now, I think it might be one of those types of things.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think there are different skill sets and different ways of thinking, which will all be fine until there's like a solar flare and the whole grid goes down, right? And then God help us. I read too much science fiction. I grew up on science fiction. What can I say?
I love it. Well, since you love science fiction, you'll love this little thought experiment. I was watching a comedian one time, and he said, I think about how advanced things are today. I thought about what would happen if I went back to like the 1900s and I had all of this knowledge. And he's like, I would be absolutely worthless. I would tell people about technology and they'll be like, well, cool, build it. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. We just keep on building on the previous advancements of each generation. It doesn't mean we fully understand those advancements, but we just benefit from them.
Well, and the challenge with AI is exactly that. In many ways, we don't understand it. It's borderline magic, really. It is magical. You tell it to code a simple app and boom, it's magic. It creates this app.
Yeah.
Now, somebody programmed the AI, right? So it's not that they're not programming. AI isn't programming itself yet.
Not yet, but it is doing some weird things. So we have things like hallucinations,
right,
where it will come up with some answer that's not just wrong, but it's like confusing as to how you even got to that. And then sometimes it's not necessarily that it like codes itself, but it can learn things that they didn't expect it to learn. And I think that's one of the most fascinating things about this technology. It seems as though like as you gather more data using the large language models and you put more into it, at some point it just like levels up in a way that the creators didn't even see coming. And I can't think of another technology where you created it and then it got better almost by accident. It's like if we made a toaster and then it's like, wow, this toaster makes pizza too. I didn't even ask it to. Like that's not how technology typically works.
It doesn't make itself better, but certainly people, if you think about the inventions, things like Post-it notes or microwaves, they generally started where people were trying to solve one problem and found out that what they were trying to solve, they ended up with something that worked for something completely unrelated. So
that's a good point.
So, I think that's a human quality, and that's one I'd want to retain.
Exactly. And that's where you start to get into those more scary iterations of what the future could be like if we lose control of it. Like that's what a lot of people are concerned about. Who knows?
The challenge is doing, the hard and the right thing, right, for everybody. And it's an everyday challenge for every person, myself included, right? Those small decisions we make. Do I take a walk this morning? Do I do my morning walk? Oh, it's raining. Maybe I won't. Well, that's fine. But if I then be like tomorrow morning, oh, I don't want to do it tomorrow, and suddenly I'm no longer doing my morning walk, that has repercussions, right? Building that resilience and that grit to get back on difficult wagon, of better ethics, better ethical behavior, better self-care, better interpersonal interactions, all those things. And that's the challenge, right? Because the tool, so that it isn't a crutch, it's an aid. There's a difference.
Absolutely.
Right? Most people don't use a cane until they have to. And when they have to, it's something that they need to continue to be mobile.
Right.
So if we're not, because if you use a cane, if you start using it too soon, right, then you're creating an atrophy of some kind that you shouldn't.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest concerns too. Like, what do we lose? What parts of ourselves? So I think it will require a lot of discipline. And like you said, making the right decisions to make sure we retain those core elements of our humanity that are really meaningful to us.
And the challenge now is that the pressure is on us not to, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, do more with less, do more faster. I mean, these are all the pressures we're under as and you look at all the people who are, I just need a job. I just need to make enough money to pay the rent. I mean, they're not, that's a person who has less bandwidth for, they're looking for not the fastest way to get ahead, just the fastest way to stay, keep their head above water.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
It's a challenge. And so providing people, that's why things like, it's not to date ourselves too much, but it's Mental Health Month. And it's taking time for that care for ourselves and for people we know, right? We hide that a lot. And that can be a real problem, right? We put a real good face on things and then people don't know. And it's not that you have to advertise that you're feeling terrible, but it's again, a balance.
Yeah. And that's the key word, balance, with all of this that we've been talking about, right? A balance. Susan, I appreciate this. This was a lot of fun. And listeners, like I said, we're going to be talking a lot more about artificial intelligence going forward. So shoot me a message if you have any other questions or topics that you want to make sure we cover. But Susan, this was really, really cool. I really appreciate chatting with you. And I really appreciate your perspective on this too.
Well, it was good to hear yours. I always and I'm looking forward to what other guests say as you hash through this topic and kind of bring it up. And because I think that you have such a diverse group of people who come, they're going to come with such different views. And I'm very excited to hear that. So I'm going to be tuning in.
Thank you. I appreciate it. No, Susan, this was great. And one more time before we wrap, let the listeners know again about Borke Works and how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. So the way you can get in touch with me is through my website, and it's my last name, B as in boy, ORKEWORKS.com. So that's borkeworks.com. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Susan. Really appreciate it. Thanks again for coming.
Thank you.
Awesome. This was great. I'm excited. And I'm excited to hear the feedback too, because I think we're all still trying to figure this out. It's brand new. So posting this and then getting feedback from people and hearing, I think we'll just all grow and learn together. So I'm excited to see what happens when we make this.
I think I'll be curious. So I'm happy to kick off a new thread, as it were.
Yes. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right, my friend. Well, we will be in touch.
All right. You take care and take care of your voice.
Yes. Thank you. We'll do. All right. I'll see you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Congratulations, you've just joined an elite club. By listening to a full episode, you're now officially on the Negotiate Anything team. So welcome aboard. What most team members do is they subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episodes of the show. The best things in life lie on the other side of difficult conversations. Keep learning, keep practicing, and keep getting better. Your relationships will improve, your career will soar, and you'll have the confidence you need to get the most out of these crucial conversations. Again, thank you for joining the team. We're excited to have you, and I will see you in the next episode. I'll catch you later.